Ahoy mateys, welcome to the high seas. 'Tis time for another great age of piracy in this flesh and blood ultimate pit fight, where 4 captains face against each other in a naval battle for the ages. Participating in this scrap we have Vladislav on Marlin, the Kraken harpooning bounty hunter, Stanislav on Puffin, the sky-faring mechanical genius, Stanislav on Scurv, the pirate captain turned stowaway thief, and me on Gravy Bones, the necromancer captaining an undead crew. And I'll be making the first move. I pitch a blue card to attack Vladislav with the yellow golden tipple with 2 attack power, leaving me with 2 resources floating. And with its effect I discard a yellow card to draw a card and create a gold token. And Vladislav blocks with a card from his hand. I tap my compass to look at the top card of my deck. I pay 2 resources to draw a card with my gold. I tap my death threats to gain 1 resource since an ally was put into my graveyard, and I use that resource to attack Vladislav again with a red golden tipple with 3 attack power, again discarding a yellow card to draw a card and create a gold token. He blocks with another card from his hand. Next I tap Gravy Bones to use his instant effect to destroy a gold token I control and draw a card and discard a card from my hand. Next I play Give No Quarter, reducing the play cost of my next 2 allies by 3 resources. And now since a blue card has been put into my graveyard, I can play cards with Watery Grave from my graveyard. So I play Swabby from my graveyard, which is now free, and since it gets go again because of my compass, I play another one from my graveyard for free as well. And with that I end my turn, passing it over to Vladislav. He uses his Harpoon Cannon's effect, giving his next era attack plus 4 attack power and overpower if it has Harpoon in its name. And to pay the 4 resource cost, he pitches a blue card and a cracked bauble. Nay, hold on, that's no mere bauble. Those be the legendary riches of Tropandani, which gives him a gold token when pitched, and leaves him with 1 resource floating. Next he pitches a blue card and pays 2 resources to draw a card with his gold token, leaving him with 2 floating. And since he drew a card during his action phase, Marlin's effect allows him to put an arrow card from his hand face up in the arsenal. And he puts Bluefin Harpoon. And he pays 2 resources to attack me with it with 8 attack power. I tap my compass to look at the top card of my deck, I block 1 damage with my head equipment, and I take the 7 remaining damage. And since it hit and Vladislav activated a cannon this turn, he looks at my hand and discards a card from it. And since it was blue, he gains a gold token. And with that he ends his turn and passes it over to Stanislav, after putting a card in his arsenal. Stanislav plays Backup Protocol and cranks it so he continues his turn. Next he plays Boom Grenade and also cranks it. And since he cranked 2 times in the same turn, he draws a card because of Puffin's effect. He pitches a blue card and pays 1 resource for Cog in the Machine, which creates 2 gold Cog tokens. They both come into play with a steam counter on them, and Stanislav cranks one so his turn continues, and he taps one of them to return Cog in the Machine to the bottom of his deck. He pays 1 resource to attack Stanislav with Cogwerk's Dovetail, with 5 attack power, and Stanislav blocks it with 2 cards from his hand and his Blade Beckoner Helm. And Stanislav ends his turn, passing it over to Stanislav. Stanislav pitches a card and pays 2 resources to attack one of my Swabbies with Talishar, with 4 attack power, which sends it to my graveyard face down. He puts a card in his arsenal and passes the turn to me. I attack Stanislav with the blue Jittery Bones with 2 attack power, and with its effect I discard a card with Watery Grave to gain go again, and Stanislav takes the 2 damage. I tap Death Threats to gain a resource, which breaks the chain link, and since a blue card was sent to the graveyard, I can play Limpet Hopalong from my graveyard, and I pay 1 resource to attack Vladislav with it with 2 attack power, and he takes the damage. I put a card in my arsenal and end my turn, passing it over to Vladislav. He attacks Stanislav with Murderous Rabble, revealing the top card of his deck, which is red so it has 1 attack power, and Stanislav takes it. He uses his Trench of Sunken Treasure to put the card in his arsenal at the bottom of his deck and gain 1 resource. He pitches a blue card and pays 2 resources to draw a card with his gold token. And with Marlin's effect he puts Redfin Harpoon face up in his arsenal. He pitches another blue card to activate his cannon, leaving him with 1 resource floating. And he pitches another card and pays 2 resources to attack Stanislav with Redfin Harpoon with 8 attack power. Stanislav blocks 4 damage with a card from his hand and his Unicycle, and he takes 4 damage. So now Vladislav looks at his hand and discards a red card from it and creates a gold token. At the end of Vladislav's turn, Stanislav uses his Backup Protocol, pitching 2 cards to pay 2 resources and return Cogworks Dovetailed from his graveyard to his hand, which destroys the backup protocol. At the start of his turn, the Boom Grenade and one of his cogs that don't have a steam counter are destroyed, and he taps his other cog and Spitfire to attack Vladislav with it with 2 attack power, and Vladislav takes it. Stanislav puts a card in his arsenal and passes the turn to Stanislav. He pitches a card and pays 1 resource to attack my Swabby with the red golden tipple, which destroys it. And he also discards a yellow card to draw a card and gain a gold token. Next he attacks me with Jack Be Quick, banishing Nimbalism from his graveyard to give it +1 attack power, so it has 4 attack power. I tap my Compass to look at the top card of my deck. I block with my Washed Up Wave, which destroys the top card of my deck, and since it had Watery Grave, it gets +2 defense. And I also block with a card from my hand, so I take no damage. And Stanislav ends his turn passing it over to me. I play Avast Ye, which gives my next pirate ally attack this turn go again, and if it hits a hero I create a gold token. I play Kong to the grave and send Chowder Hardy Cook to the graveyard. Next I tap Dead Threads to gain a resource, and I use that resource to play Rigor Mortis from my graveyard. I pitch a blue card and pay 1 resource to attack Vladislav with Rigor Mortis with 6 attack power, and he doesn't block and takes 6 damage, and I gain a gold token. Next I pay a resource to attack Stanislav with Limpid Hopalong with 2 attack power. He also doesn't block and takes 2 damage. And I pitch another card and pay 3 resources to play Chowder from my graveyard. And because I don't have go again, that ends my turn, but before that, I use Chowder's instant effect to tap him to gain 1 life. And I pass the turn over to Vladislav. He plays the red call in the big guns, which gives his next arrow attack +3 attack power, and he gets to place an arrow face up in his arsenal. Next he pitches 2 blue cards and pays 4 resources to activate his cannon, and he uses his 2 remaining resources to attack Stanislav with King Shark Harpoon, with 13 attack power. He blocks 9 damage with his Cogworks Tinker Rings, his Rust Belt and 2 cards from his hand, and he takes 4 damage. And since he blocked with Pinion Sentry, he taps his Golden Cog to create another Golden Cog, and he gains another Golden Cog because he defended with Cogworks Tinker Rings. And since Stanislav has no attack action cards in his hand, Vladislav doesn't get to discard anything, so he ends his turn and passes it over to Stanislav. At the start of his turn, one of his golden cogs without a steam counter is destroyed and the rest lose their steam counter. He plays a copper cog, which comes into play with 2 steam counters, but he cranks it so his turn doesn't end, so he loses 1. Next he plays a boom grenade, which he also cranks, and since he cranked twice this turn, he gets to draw a card because of Puffin. He uses the effect of his Rust Belt, destroying it and tapping a cog he controls to gain a resource, and he uses that resource to attack Vladislav with Cogworks Dovetail with 5 attack power. But since it can gain attack power by tapping cogs, Vladislav blocks 7 damage with 2 cards from his hand and his peg leg. So Stanislav taps one of his cogs to give Dovetail go again, and he taps the other one to attack Vladislav with Spitfire with 2 attack power, and Vladislav blocks it with a card from his hand. Stanislav puts a card in his arsenal and passes the turn to Stanislav, who uses Curve's effect, tapping him and destroying a gold token he controls to create a Gold Kiss Rum token. He pitches 2 cards and pays 3 resources to attack me with Money or Your Life with 6 attack power, which if it hits me, deals me another 2 damage if I don't give him a gold token I control. And since he's a thief, he gets to repeat that effect once more. So I use Gravy Bones' instant effect, tapping him and destroying a gold token I control to draw a card and discard a card. I also tap my Compass to look at the top card of my deck. I don't block and I take 6 damage and 4 additional damage because of the card's effect. And Stanislav ends his turn and passes it over to me. I pitch a card and pay 1 resource to attack Vladislav with Limpid Hopalong with 2 attack power. Vladislav doesn't block and he takes 2 damage. I play the blue Flying High to give my next attack this turn go again. I pay 1 resource to attack Stanislav with Rigor Mortis with 6 attack power. He blocks 3 damage with a card from his hand and he takes 3 damage. And I attack Stanislav again with Murderous Rabble, revealing a yellow card from the top of my deck so it attacks with 2 attack power. Stanislav does block and he takes 2 damage. I put a card in my arsenal and pass the turn to Vladislav. And before my turn ends, I use the instant effect of Chowder, tapping it to gain 1 life. And since he only has 1 card in hand, Vladislav puts it in his arsenal and ends his turn. At the start of his turn, Stanislav Golden Cogs and Boom Grenade are destroyed because they have no steam counters. He plays another Copper Cog and cranks it, and another boom grenade, which he also cranks so he gets to draw a card. He pitches a card and pays 1 resource to attack Stanislav with Cloud Skiff, with 5 attack power. Stanislav doesn't block and he takes 5 damage. And with Cloud Skiff's effect, Stanislav taps a cog he controls to gain go again. And because of boom grenade, Stanislav loses another 2 life. He pitches another card and pays 2 resources to attack Stanislav with Jolly Bludger, with 5 attack power. Stanislav blocks 3 damage with Ong Knocker and a card from his hand and he takes 2 damage. And Stanislav also gets to steal his rum.
Where's rum gone?
And Stanislav ends his turn and passes it over to Stanislav, who attacks him with Jack B. Nimble with 3 attack power, looking to steal something from him in return. Stanislav doesn't block and he takes 3 damage, and Stanislav takes his copper cog with a steam counter on it. And he also uses his Snapdragon Scalers to gain go again. Next he pitches a card and pays 3 resources to attack Stanislav with money or your life, which Stanislav blocks with 2 cards from his hand. And that's the end of Stanislav's turn and it's off to me. I play Portside Exchange, discarding a card to draw a card, and since it was a yellow card I discarded, I get to create a Gong token. I tap my compass to look at the top card of my deck. Next I play Chart the High Seas, which allows me to look at the top 2 cards of my deck. I pitch a blue card from among them, and the rest are trashed, and I create a Gong token for each yellow card trashed. I pitch Give No Quarter, and I send Tip the Barkeep to the graveyard. But because it's not yellow, I don't get a Gong token. I use one of my floating resources to attack Vladislav with Limpet with 2 attack power, which he takes. I pitch another card and pay 4 resources to attack Vladislav with Conqueror of the High Seas, which is a ghost ship, so that's why you can't see it. And since I have 2 blue cards in my pitch zone, it gets +1 attack power, so it attacks with 8 attack power. He blocks 3 damage with a card from his hand, and he uses the instant ability of his Trench of Sunken Treasure to put the card from his arsenal on the bottom of his deck, so I don't get a Gong token with Conqueror hits. And he takes 5 damage. I tap Dead Threats to gain a resource, and I use 2 resources to destroy my Gong token and draw a card. I play Hoist and Heart of Gong from my graveyard, and since it's the first ally I played from my graveyard this turn, it gets Gong again. And I pitch another card to pay 1 resource to attack Vladislav with Gong and Tipung, which he blocks with a card from his hand. And with that I end my turn and pass it over to Vladislav, after of course tapping Chowder to gain 1 life. He pitches a card and pays 2 resources to draw a card with his Gong token. And with Marlin's effect he puts a card face up in his arsenal. And he pitches another card to pay 2 resources to attack me with King Kraken Harpoon with 6 attack power. And I block it with 2 cards from my hand. So Vladislav ends his turn and passes it over to Stanislav, who loses one of his cogs that doesn't have a steam counter. He starts by activating his Blue Sea Tricorn, paying 3 resources to draw a card, for which he pitches a card from his hand and a cracked Bobong. Nay, my eyes deceived me again. It's another Riches of Tropadani. Where did they acquire such a legendary item? And because Riches of Tropadani was pitched, he creates a Gong token. He pitches another card and pays 2 resources to destroy his Gong token to draw a card. And he attacks Stanislav with Yellow Sky Skimmer with 3 attack power. Stanislav blocks it with 2 cards from his hand, and Stanislav taps his cog to gain go again. Next he destroys Unicyclone to untap his cog, and taps it again to attack Stanislav with Spitfire with 2 attack power. Stanislav blocks with his Blade Beckoner Helm, which gains +1 defense, since it's blocking a weapon attack, so Stanislav takes 1 damage. And that ends Stanislav's turn and it's off to Stanislav. He plays Nimblism, giving his next attack action +3 attack power, and he attacks Stanislav with Ravenous Rabble, revealing a red card on the top of his deck, so it attacks with 4 attack power +3 from Nimblism, so it's 7 attack power. Stanislav blocks 7 damage with 2 cards from his hand, by destroying his cog because one of them has Galvanize. And that's the end of Stanislav's turn and it's my turn. I start by playing Avasti. I pitch a card and pay 1 resource to attack Vladislav with Rigor Mortis, with 6 attack power, which he blocks with 2 cards from his hand. So I pay another resource to attack him with Limpet with 2 attack power, which he blocks with his Trench of Sunken Treasure and Blue Sea Tricorn. Next I attack Stanislav with Oysten with 3 attack power, which he blocks with a card from his hand and Light Fingers. Finally I tap Chowder to gain a life and end my turn. Vladislav destroys his Boom's Ice Bracers to put an arrow face up in his arsenal and it gains +1 attack power. And he pitches a card to pay 2 resources to attack me with Yellowfin Harpoon with 5 attack power. I tap my compass to look at the top card of my deck, and I block 3 damage with a card from my hand and I take 2 damage. And since Yellowfin Harpoon hit, I show him a card from my hand, which is blue, so it's not discarded. And Vladislav ends his turn passing it over to Stanislav. He uses the Gold Kiss from his stone to tap Puffin, so his next action gains go again.
But why is the run gone?
He plays Gold Wing Turbine, which creates a Golden Cog token, which he doesn't have to crank this time because he already has go again. And also his next Mechanologist attack gets +3 attack power. And he taps his Golden Cog to attack Vladislav with Spitfire with 5 attack power. He blocks it with 2 cards from his hand, one of them being Return Fire. So with its effect he banishes an arrow from his hand, and at the start of his next turn it is put face up in his arsenal and it gets +3 attack power. And Stanislav ends his turn and it's now Stanislav's turn. He plays another Nimblism and attacks me with Strike Gold with 5 attack power. I tap Chowder to gain 1 life and I choose not to block and I take 5 damage. So Stanislav gets a gold token and he ends his turn passing it over to me. I pitch a blue card and attack Stanislav with a golden Tipung with 2 attack power, and with its effect I discard a yellow card to draw a card and gain a gold token. And Stanislav blocks it with a card from his hand. Next I use Gravy Bones' effect, tapping him and destroying my gold token to draw a card and discard a card. And since I discarded Sea Legs, I create a Gold Kiss Rum token. Next I use 1 resource to attack Stanislav with Limpet with 2 attack power, which he blocks with a card from his hand. But I still wanna use him as a meat shield, so I play another Limpet and another Rigor Mortis from my trash with my remaining 1 resource. Finally I put a card in my arsenal and end my turn passing it over to Vladislav, whose arrow returns to his arsenal and he pitches a card and pays 2 resources to attack Stanislav with King Shark Harpoon with 9 attack power. He blocks 6 damage with 2 cards from his hand and he takes 3 damage. And because King Shark Harpoon hit, Stanislav shows a card to Vladislav, but it's not an attack action card so it's not discarded. And that ends Vladislav's turn. Stanislav pitches a card and pays 2 resources for Gold Wing Turbine, creating a Golden Cog token which he cranks. He then taps a cog to attack Vladislav with Spitfire with 5 attack power, and he taps his other cog to give it +1 attack power, making it 6 attack power. And Vladislav blocks it with 2 cards from his hand, and once again one of them is Return Fire. So he gets another powered up arrow next turn. And Stanislav ends his turn and passes it over to Stanislav, who uses Curve's effect to destroy his gold token to create a Gold Kiss Rum token. And while he does that, Vladislav and I come to a non-aggression agreement for the next turn. And Stanislav attacks me with Scar for a Scar with 4 attack power. I tap Chowder to gain 1 life, and I use my compass to look at the top card of my deck, and I blow 3 damage with a card from my hand and take 1 damage. And next he attacks me with Sticky Fingers with 2 attack power, which I also block with a card from my hand. And that ends Stanislav's turn and he passes it over to me. I pitch a card and pay 1 resource to attack Stanislav with Golden Tipung with 2 attack power. With its effect I discard a yellow card to draw a card and create a gold token. Stanislav blocks it with a card from his hand. I use 1 of my floating resources to attack him with Limpet with 2 attack power, which he blocks. And I do it again with my other Limpet, which he also blocks. And I pitch a card and pay 1 resource to attack him with Rigor Mortis with 6 attack power. And he can't block all of it, so it looks like Scurv will be the first to walk the plank.
Stupid, sexy Scurv.
And with that I end my turn and pass it over to Vladislav, who gets his arrow back, and he pitches a card and pays 2 resources to attack Stanislav with King Kraken Harpoon with 9 attack power. Stanislav blocks 6 damage with 2 cards from his hands and he takes 3 damage. And again Stanislav reveals nothing that can be discarded. So Vladislav ends his turn and passes it over to Stanislav. He attacks me with Soup Up with 2 attack power, and since one of his items was destroyed this turn it gains go again. I tap Chowder to gain 1 life, and I block 1 damage with Death Threat, so I take 1 damage. And then he attacks me with Sky Skimmer with 4 attack power, and I block with the only card I can, but sadly it is not enough, so I'm next to be sent to Gravy Bones' locker. And Stanislav ends his turn and passes it over to Vladislav. Vladislav plays the blue coin in the big guns, giving his next arrow attack +1 attack power, and he puts an arrow face up in his arsenal. Next he pitches 2 blue cards, paying 4 resources to activate his cannon, and he uses his remaining 2 resources to attack Stanislav with Bluefin Harpoon, with 9 attack power and overpower. And since Stanislav can only block with 1 card, he takes the damage and it's off to the gallows with him. And there you have it, folks. Marlin has outsmarted and outgunned all of her pirate rivals, officially making her the Pirate King. Hope you enjoyed this episode and we'll see you next time. Bye!